Back in 2016, we got a brief taste of Valak the Demonic Nun. This movie was so successful, we got this movie in 2018 with Sister Irene needing to save the world from Valak. She teams up with a priest and a man named Maurice, and they go to a Romanian abbey to stop Valak, who needs to possess a lone human being to escape the abbey. It seems all is lost, but not so fast, because Sister Irene swallows the blood of Christ and spits it all over the face of Valak. All the world is saved, but not so fast, because Maurice was possessed by Valak, and now years later he's really fucked. But Sister Irene teams up with Storm Reed to save Maurice and this French convent, because if she does not get a hold of a relic, the world will be fucked for all time. The Nun 2 is a sequel to, yes, The Nun. If you couldn't figure it out with that terrible, terrible musical intro and the fact that this is The Nun and this movie's The Nun 2, really don't know what I can do to help you. So yeah, it's a never-ending Conjuring universe timeline, family tree and film tree splintering off and a whole bunch of stuff, and some of the branches hang low with low-hanging fruit and rotted fruit, as it were. Admittedly, the first time I reviewed The Nun, I was a little bit too kind, a little bit absolutely too kind to the first Nun. But that being said, there was a little bit of good atmosphere. I was looking forward to Valak, who, by the way, was again in The Conjuring 2, and this is the benchmark of the Conjuring franchise. All the movies, every single goddamn one. This one was perfect. Valak, by the way, Valak, that one, not Vera Farmiga, who's beautiful. I mean, not that Bonnie Aarons, there's anything wrong with her, but she can just play a possessed nun really well. So yes, The Nun 2, the long-awaited sequel to The Nun, and there are so many movies in the Conjuring universe franchise thing that there's bound to be movies that aren't all that great. So Michael Chavis, he directed this. What did he do in the Conjuring universe? Oh, he did this one. Linda Cardellini, I would and you would too. This one was shoehorned in with an Annabelle reference to make it part of the Conjuring universe. It was very, very, yeah, it really wasn't all that great. But he did another one. He did this. You know, the least of the three Conjuring movies. The Devil Made Me Do It. The Devil made me kind of wish I hadn't given this an A- initially. You know, upon rewatching some of these movies, I realized sometimes I'm a little bit too kind to some of these horror movies, because I love horror movies, except zombie movies. I'm kind of sick of those, but I love and own all of these Conjuring universe movies because I'm a completionist, and I will get The Nun 2 on Blu-ray, even though I will likely never take it out of plastic wrapping. I like to have everything for completionist's sake. That probably is going to tip you off as to how I felt about the second Nun movie, but it was written by three different people. There were three people that wrote this. The story was written by one person, by Christ As It Show. Ian Goldberg, who did Dead of Summer, he was the creator of that. I forgot about that show. It was all right. Autopsy of Jane Doe and Eli. Not the Book of Eli, but that Netflix movie that wasn't necessarily all that great. And Richard Nang, or Nang, sorry if I got that wrong. Same as Ian, and a couple other credits. And Akilah Cooper, who did Hellfest, Malignant, and Megan. Yeah, when Hellfest is the best movie out of those three, there's something wrong there. And Hellfest was another one I was a little too kind to, despite the fact that I do own it. So yes, the Conjuring universe continuing because it's so wildly successful. So many movies. So even the ones that didn't do all that great still cost a little bit and made millions and millions and millions of dollars. And because suckers like me will go watch them, they're going to keep cranking them out. I was looking forward to The Nun 2 because I thought it really can't be any more boring than the first Nun. Well, let's talk about that here in a bit. I will say right now that as far as entries in the franchise, as far as spin-offs or sequels or prequels or whatever, this would be the benchmark. I would argue that, Annabelle Creation basically was the benchmark of, prequels, spin-offs, and whatever. And I was totally goddamn surprised. I watched this movie and I'm actually chilled because they did a really good job with this. Also, Miranda Otto. Yes, I would. Absolutely would. Nevertheless, The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, was the last movie this guy did. So, yes, Sister Irene, played by Tessa Farmiga, or Tessa Farmiga, whatever, however you pronounce her name. The younger sister of Vera Farmiga, I know, shocking with the last name. She was in American Horror Story. She was in The First Nun, and also was in this. Storm Reed, by the way, who is terrific, a terrific young actress who's going to just be a huge star. She's really good. And Jonas Blockwood, who was in The First Nun. He played Maurice, not the gangster of love. And Anna Popplewell, who was the younger girl in the Chronicles of Narnia movie and looks exactly the same. And she plays Kate, who runs a class at a convent, or some kind of convent, or some kind of little school for girls or whatever. They never totally identify what it is. And then we have Bonnie Aarons, who plays Valak. And then we have various other characters, including Natalia Safran, who was in she's had a role in the other Conjuring movies, a couple of them. So it's set in France in 1956, and Maurice is working as a gardener and a maintenance man at a school is haunted by a presence that is very close to him because he was possessed by Valak at the end of the first movie. That's not a spoiler. If you consider that a spoiler, then you didn't watch the first movie. Or if you're like me, and I know I'm like me, you might have wished you sustained several major head injuries before watching this. So Sister Irene must battle back along with Storm Reed's Deborah and make sure that they solve this mystery before Valak makes the world history. Eventually, maybe. Valak just kind of does this stuff and peeks around the corner and hi. So it was actually filmed in an abandoned church in France. And the estimated budget was 30 to 40 million. The budget for the first one was 22. And it makes sense why they would beef up the budget, because it opened with $53.8 million and made 117 US and 365.5 worldwide. So I think it was successful. The problem is The Nun wasn't particularly good. And they had two movies that came out in the Conjuring Timeline in 2019. The Curse of La Llorona and Annabelle Comes Home. When Annabelle Comes Home was the better of the two, and it was another one that I was a little bit too kind to. The perfect mix of fun, thrills, and terror. Don't think that person necessarily watched the same movie as I did, but nevertheless. So basically, it's kind of split into a bunch of parts. There's a bit of backstory as far as Sister Irene dealing with her mother and how her and Maurice separated but had a bond and stuff like that. And Maurice has a bond with a little girl named Sophie, and who's the daughter of Kate, Anna Popplewell. I will say the little girl to play Sophie, she's fine. She's fine in this. It's hard to really knock kid actors, but it does. And the biggest issue with this movie is, as Sister Irene and Storm Reed tried to discover what's going on with this, even though it's really obvious, Valak just kind of does shit and lures people in through their unabashed stupidity to walk into very, very creepy places and not question, maybe I shouldn't be here. Also, there's this cut-off area that's chained up because a death happened at this particular school. And no questions as to why it was just chained up with that, why it wasn't just sealed off, I don't know, with lacquer, or possibly was bricked over. You probably could have done that, and it probably would have been a whole lot safer. People couldn't have gotten into it so goddamn quick. But the best way I can describe this movie before I really get into the plot is you take The Nun, and you take Annabelle Creation, and you do this. And then Annabelle Creation loses, you get The Nun, and you also get the very first Annabelle. Congratulations, by the way, to The Nun 2. I'm far enough into this review because this was the worst entry in the franchise. Was. The Nun 2 is fucking atrocious. It is one of the worst horror movies of the year. And I didn't expect much, but you know precisely when this movie lost me? When this movie lost me? It was about 30 minutes in. Remember when the lady had the doll, She, the lady got shot and everything, and her blood went into the doll. And right after that, the movie went to shit. That's where the movie lost me. You want to know when The Nun 2 lost me? It was with the opening sequence. Because the opening sequence was filled with terrible jump scares, terrible noise, and not very good atmosphere, a lot of stupidity, and a lot of people really just making stupid decisions. Oh, there's this dark hallway. Maybe I should avoid that, and I probably should just get out of here. No, I'll wait here like an idiot. And also the idea of what Valak is pursuing and why Valak has Maurice alive is actually even sillier than this one. Because you would think that after the first one, the blood of Christ, if the blood of Christ doesn't actually end up saving that after Taissa Farmiga decided to hold it and spit it out, if you can't get somebody with that kind of gag reflex to keep a demon down, then what the fuck can you do? That was a terrible way to describe it. But it ends up basically just being a series of jump scares that aren't even any good. And this actually somehow, it tries to feature Valak more while featuring Valak less at the same time. Yes, there are a few violent parts, but you don't care about any of these characters. One character gets dispatched, and we're supposed to feel bad, I think. But I just was laughing because of how comical it was. Because it involved a hook and everything. And from there, the girls, like Sophie's the main girl. There's a couple that are bullying her. Maurice is staying up for Sophie because Maurice is sweet on Kate. I mean, look at Anna Popplewell. How could you not be sweet on her? Boy, howdy. But that being said, you got this going on. Sister Irene is called because Valak has been doing some stuff. There was something happened in the beginning that Valak did. And then other stuff that's been happening where it's just been going in a sequence. It's been moving in a certain direction because it's trying to find something, a certain relic. That's all I'm going to say right there, is a certain relic. And Taissa Farmiga is totally wasted. There's a jump scare they reveal in the trailer that involves magazines, and it plays out even goddamn worse when you see it in real time or watch it play in the theaters, because you're just like, somebody could have taken a nap while that whole thing was being set up. Good God, this thing was an hour and 48 minutes, and it felt like it was at least 30 to 40 minutes longer than that. This was excruciating. And they try to build this, like this big brother, little sister bond, so to speak, between Maurice and Sophie, and also this brief romance with Kate. But none of it ends up actually working. And also, a few things in this movie kind of undo everything that happens in a later entry in the movie, and I don't quite understand that. And Taissa Farmiga is totally goddamn wasted in this. I think the people that wrote the movie actually were wasted while watching this. And while I respect people trying to go in a different direction, and I'm glad that people got paid, and I really hope the writer's strike and the actor's strike ends up with everybody getting paid more like they deserve, there is no reason how writing this bad should exist in a horror movie in 2023 with this kind of budget. If it was like something that was shoved out on Tubi for like $400,000, I could understand that. This had big budget backing behind it and some star power. And everybody's just standing, oh my God, what's happening? I need to see what's happening here. There's this part where the girls are bullying Sophie, and it just involves her being stupid and all these jump scares with Valak. And Valak doesn't really, when Valak does do stuff, you don't care, you laugh, and it just ends up being an amalgamation of a bunch of bullshit. That's all it ends up being. It's just, there's no atmosphere to it. There's even less atmosphere than the first one, which didn't have that much. It ends up being worse than Annabelle, and that's saying something. It was worse than Annabelle. Congratulations, you didn't even have 30 minutes of good shit before you went to shit. God, The Nun 2 was terrible. It was absolutely terrible, and I didn't want to say that. I wanted to at least say it was okay, or it was mildly amusing. And I mean, I guess it was amusing that they thought that this was the finished product, and this deserved to be shoved out in theaters. That's it. That's all I have to say there. It's in theaters, you can check it out. Maybe you'll like it more than I did, but these spoilers really aren't going to take very long because there's not a whole lot of story to it. It treads a whole lot of the old ground, tries to build a few things, tries to tie into the other movies, and fails miserably. So yeah, it's in theaters if you want to check it out. I'm getting into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Okay, so the relic that Valak is looking for are the eyes of Sister, or Saint Lucy, right? Saint Lucy in the sky with diamonds. I really should have opened with that, actually, but that would have spoiled the whole goddamn thing. And it was somebody that wouldn't burn. They tried burning her at the stake, and they took her eyes out. So now her eyes can be used either for good, if it's in the power, if it's in the hands of like a nun, or if it's in the hands of the nun, then it could be used for evil. And this demon that was an angel rejected by God and stripped of its power will get these eyes and ascend to heaven and possibly kill God. I don't know. They really don't get that goddamn far before we get to a bunch of goofiness. There are also just set pieces. They just throw this stuff around. The magazine jump scare I was talking. Tessa Farmiga has to stare at this thing for almost a full minute while the magazines are doing this, and then it does this, and oh wait, this looks like the nun that I saw before. Oh, let me look back here, and then let me look down here, and then it'll be like when it ran up and choked me in that, tunnel. Except that was at least an effective jump scare. I mean, we saw it in the trailer, but it's still effective. This was, oh wait, that's actually what it is. Oh my god, oh the nun, oh, and then choked out, and then saw the stuff with Saint Lucy and all this, and Storm Reed is totally goddamn wasted in this movie. Totally wasted. We see a brief little bit of stuff about how Irene and Maurice parted ways, but always were going to stay in contact because they felt a bond. And obviously it turns out that Maurice had the snake go down his goddamn throat from Valak, and that's how the demon was able to escape. That's how Sister Irene was able to defeat it, with the blood of Christ. And didn't even bother to think, hey, Maurice, you're touching your neck a lot. And hey, what's that weird mark on the back of your neck? That upside down cross? Oh, I'm sure it was just a birthmark. And then nobody kept an eye on him. Nobody said, hey, wait a second. Shouldn't we check this guy for marks? And hey, wait, he's acting really weird and acting all possessed and staring at this doorway and acting all strange. And then this one boy that was making a delivery and putting stuff in a pantry just got killed, and nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care, by the way, or notice. There's a wine cellar because the sisters have to get drunk constantly. Oh, Jesus Christ. And it's so mind-numbingly lacking in anything scary at all. Maurice and more stuff with Maurice and Sophie. Valak's eventually around a little bit. Does kill that boy. Does beat that, help or use the ghost of this old lady's son or grandson, I believe, to beat. I think it was her son. I don't actually care. beat her to death with a goddamn, one of those smoke little lantern things that they use. That does not look like a smoke lantern thing that I'm using, to beat her about the head and face. And then what ends up happening, she ends up getting beaten with a hook, killed with a hook, make way for the hook, and then she's just forgotten about. And then her body's found like a day later or the next morning or possibly in a week. I mean, I don't actually know. The time seemed to really have no meaning here. While Sister Irene and Storm Reed are off investigating and trying to figure out all this stuff, and they figure out the St. Lucy's eyes and all that, the girls are being harassed. Sophie's being targeted. Maurice is acting more and more possessed. And then also there was this thing about this stained glass window that had this red eye of this goat that was supposed to be the devil, and if you don't stare right at it, then this goat will come to life. Well, guess what happens later? The goat comes to life, and it's so... The CGI in this movie is utter dog shit. I mean, and I'm sorry to the crew. I mean, I'm sure they worked hard, but if this was the finished product, then they did the CGI crew a disservice. But that goat man, Ram, disciple of the Bland, whatever the hell he was, disciple of the Dodge Ram, chasing after them, hitting into a couple doors because it was so nice to watch him do it once. Let's watch him do it again. Oh, wait, it wasn't scary the first time. Let's watch him do it again. Sister Irene figures out it's Maurice. Yeah, you should have figured that out sooner. Oh my God, Deborah, what do you mean Maurice is this guy? Oh my God, he's the groundskeeper. We have to go get him. And then they eventually have to stop Maurice. And it also turns out the Sister Irene, the stuff with her mother, where her mother had visions and her dad called her crazy. Sister Irene keeps having visions, like visions of hopefully a better movie. So she decides, hey, wait a second. all this wine, we can use it like the blood of Christ, the new blood of Christ. So while Maurice is being stopped, I think he's trying to stop himself from stabbing Sophie. They're in this whole thing. Just before that, the stupidest thing. Just before that, they had the eyes. Sophie had the eyes. And actually used them to push him back. And then the tower, Rapunzel, that was collapsing. The bell falls into the basement. Meanwhile, the girls and Storm Reed and Anna Popplewell are being chased by the ram. There's a jump scare with the old lady reaching through the vent and the bugs creeping out of her mouth and stuff like that. And they seemingly defeat Valak because Sophie gets the eyes of Sister Irene. She does this, and Maurice is, because he's basically pretty much a hollowed out shell. He's being and all this, and he's being killed and stuff like that. And it seems like he's dead. And then she goes to take care of him, puts the eyes on his chest, and then comes back, shoves, eyes go, the all-seeing eyes, St. Lucy's eyes go into his head, and now Valak has all the power that it needs. And then the wine starts flowing, while Sophie's doing some stuff. Maurice has her trapped. Storm Reed and Tysa Farmiga do a prayer. Say a little prayer for you forever, forever, and ever. And then they manage to somehow turn the wine into something pure, and they kill it with wine. They kill Valak with wine. And Maurice is fine. And that's it. Then that's it. It seems like everything's fine. Then we get some imagery, and then we get a mid-credits scene just before all the credits start going. There's nothing at the end of the credits, by the way. Once all the creepy Conjuring music goes and you get to where the Nun 2 flashes, then you get a credit scene with Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, and seemingly the babysitter saying, hey, yes, Father, what can we do to help? Well, that's for when Maurice somehow was still possessed, despite Valak being defeated by religious wine. And then Maurice scares the hell out of that. And then Elaine remembers seeing that and seeing a vision of his death, like in the second one and everything. And it's all going back on its own ass, and it's hurting my head. I wish they did the Crooked Man, so maybe that could have been at least something halfway decent. God damn it, the Nun 2 gets an F. It gets an F. God, do not give Michael Chavez another horror movie to do, at least not in the Conjuring universe. He has proven that he cannot do it. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.